Hi, this is Kona, and we're going to go through and show how you can do a comparison of two categorical pieces of data, two categorical variables, using a bar chart. So our example question is there a difference in the hours someone sleeps each night and whether or not they're a pet owner? So to do this, our categorical is sleep, and we've got our three different categories, and then our other categorical variable is pet, yes or no. Then we're going to come up to graph and bar chart and cluster. And for this one, it is counts of unique values and cluster. Click OK. And so then what we would do is just add our categorical variables. So for this one, let me move this over, but what you're seeing, so graphs, bar charts, clusters, counts of unique values, but for the categorical variable by group, you want to put it in order of sleep and then pet. So, and why is that? And I can show you the difference. But so first we're going to do sleep, and then pet, and then click OK. And ultimately, you could do this either way. So this is how sleep versus pet, or sleep and then pet. So basically, it separates everything out by sleep first, and then by whether or not they have a pet. So for the people who get 6 to 8 hours of sleep, let's see, what is it? We've got definitely way more of the people with pets are getting more of that kind of sleep than the people without pets, right? But honestly, this is the less than. So see how this is kind of out of order? It's kind of confusing, right? Because it should be less than 6 hours, then 6 to 8, and then more than 8, right? So what we're going to do really quick, and I'm just going to go ahead and X out of this one. We're going to go up to calculator, and, oh, I'm sorry, data, recode, and we're going to recode to text because we're not trying to change it. And that was sleep and individual values. All right, so instead of less than, so the problem is that it's putting it in alphabetical order. So alphabetical order, and you've got a number comes before words. So that's why the 6 to 8 is going, then the less than, and then the more than. But what I'm going to do is do less than sign. So less than 6 hours. And we don't have to change the more than. And I'm going to just go ahead and put it in the original column, and I don't need a summary table. Click OK. So now you can see right here that's switched. So what that's going to do, now when I go to graph, bar chart, cluster, remember counts of unique, okay, sleep and pet, those are the ones we had before. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now when you look at it, you've got less than 6 hours. So for people who get less than 6 hours, there's no difference between the people who have a pet and the people who don't have a pet. For the people who sleep 6 to 8 hours, people who have a pet get more of that 6 to 8 hour sleep. And then for the people who get more than 8 hours, people who don't have a pet get more of that type of sleep. So for this one, maybe I was thinking like people who have a pet don't get to sleep as much because they're busy taking care of their pet. Well, people, who get more than 8 hours don't have a pet, so that is a larger one there. There's 4 people compared to 1 for this one. But when you look at the 6 to 8 hours, you've got the people who have a pet are getting a lot more of that sleep. So how much is this really telling you? Nah, I don't know. This might be something where a different type of chart might be a better chart for this. So maybe something more like where you've got the tables with the categories and the percentages. That might be better for this kind of data. It just kind of depends on what you're trying to show or what you're trying to talk about. Also, just to show you the difference, so I'm going to go back to graph. Oh, actually, I don't have to, because remember, you can just click here. What happens if we switch and do pet and then sleep, just so you can see the difference? So when we do that, here you can see the difference. So this one right here, the chart of sleep pet, is that first one. And here's the exact same data, but instead of this time, they separated them initially out by people who had a pet versus people who didn't have a pet, or no pet and then pet. So in this case, we're looking at the people who don't have a pet and this is kind of, and this actually might be maybe a more interesting chart because, and it just depends on your story that you're trying to tell. But in this case, for people who don't have a pet, the majority of people who don't have a pet get more than 8 hours of sleep. That's kind of the larger box, right? Versus the people who have a pet tend to get either 6 to 8 or less than 6 hours. Those are the two big categories here. So it does seem to imply that maybe you could say if you don't have a pet, you know, you're more likely to get more than 8 hours of sleep than, you know, the other two. Versus if you have a pet, you're more likely to get the 6 to 8 hours of sleep. We can't say anything definitive. Like I said, maybe a different figure chart would tell you something, but this is why sometimes it's interesting to look at the charts both ways. So do you want to look at it this way, where we're looking at, you know, so people who get more than 8 hours of sleep, well, definitely the no pet people, you know, so that's there. But the 6 to 8 hours, the pet, it just kind of depends on what story you're going to tell, and make sure you pick the chart, the formation, so with the order, I guess, of which variable comes first that matches with this. So this is the exact same data, it's just two different formations. One, they're separating it out by hours of sleep first, and then pet, no pet. Here they're separating it out by pet, no pet, and then how much sleep. But it is still the exact same data. And that's the really important thing, is that it's the same data, we're just kind of pulling it apart in a slightly different way. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. We'll do some more analysis here.